Zach Durfee deserves more snaps against Northwestern.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back in to another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor of F1 Sports Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel's customers are going to bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Lars got a really fun show coming at all the everydayers today. We're going to talk about Washington's exciting recruiting class after the addition of Jack Shaffer on Tuesday night. We're going to talk about the adjustments that Jedd Fisch needs to make on both sides of the ball. Yes, we talked about it on our show yesterday, but it doesn't matter. We need to keep talking about it because there are so many that need to be made. And we're going to be leading off today with players that we really want to see a lot more of. And after he played, 25 snaps against Northwestern, I feel like the number one guy on this list needs to be Zach Durfee.
You mean against Washington State?
Yeah, Washington State. My bad.
No, because you're right. He needs to play more than 29 against Northwestern. Yep. So I was like, no,
that's what I got on my mind.
No, I just wanted to clear that one up because you're absolutely right. And the thing about Zach is we've seen him line up at multiple spots, like not just at edge. We've seen him stun and come up the middle. We saw that against Eastern Michigan because I remember going back and looking at the tape, and one of those pressures came with Zach up the middle, and it forced everything a little bit different. It's like, exactly. Like, why you don't – I mean, even with Zach being injured, we've seen Zach tough things out. Like, I would – short of it being a concussion, which, again, anytime if you have a concussion, stay off the field. Like, yeah, as somebody who's had multiple, like, stay off the field. Like, it's not worth it. But other than short of your arm straight up falling off, like, if you are seriously hurt, fine. But Zach's a guy to me where it's like he wants to be on the field as much as humanly possible, given what he's been through, obviously, but also because he's a senior guy and you know exactly what you're going to get. And yeah, I mean, there was a couple of times he got stood up, but it wasn't like he was getting, nothing. Like, I think that's the thing. To me, it didn't make a lot of sense. Now, the other kind of side of that equation is he's not the only edge that, should probably be playing more. And I understand there's a lot of guys that, are in that mix, but, Voight Snoop, he played a lot. Zach's been playing a lot, but he doesn't have over 100 snaps on the season. And you start to look at it, and it's like, why is that the case? And, I mean, Isaiah Ward's still in the mix, but to me, Zach's a guy who should be playing like 35-plus snaps a game unless somehow your defense is forcing 3-and-outs after every single snap, which, of course, you would then not have a ton of plays to work with. So, short of that happening, which again was not the case this weekend, Wazoo didn't have 35 snaps. Wish they did. That'd be cool. But that'd be a lot different story. With that being said, another guy that I think probably deserves the same mix is Deshawn Lynch. I told you when I told you the snap count, we can go back specifically to Washington State, but Deshawn Lynch had 9 defensive snaps. 9. And to me, I do not understand. And here's the thing. We're not talking about a guy who's a redshirt freshman like Jaden Wayne coming in where, okay, if he's getting 9 to 12 to 15 snaps per game, that's okay. That's pretty good, especially considering, he still would be expected to be more of a contributor next year, right? You're thinking in that defensive line because of Zach Durfee, as you mentioned, and Deshawn Lynch. That's the mind-blowing part of it. Oh, you know what? I stand corrected. Deshawn had 8 snaps. I gave him 1 too many. That's the other side of this equation. And he actually on PFF graded one of the better players. So it's not like he was doing bad. That's what's mind-boggling.
There are a lot of things that are mind-boggling about that, in my opinion, where not only has he shown to be a really nice run defender on the edge, but he's also shown that he can get after the quarterback. And that's no matter where, because, he's one of the, it's him and Voy that rotate as that zero tech nose when they get that 3rd and long. And especially against some of these more mobile teams, I would almost mobile quarterbacks, which I know Lars, you have a lot on later in the show, but that's something that I want to see a little bit more of from Deshawn because he's a little bit more proven as a run defender. I love Voy. I'm a huge fan of Voy's game, but I don't necessarily know if that zero tech is the best role for him, where you can still stand him up, but put him next to Deshawn. Put him next to him. And then you can still have, Kamori, or if you want to put another, like a linebacker in there, Alfonso Tuputala, along with, whoever else you want to get in there, where Isaiah Ward is shown to be really good in these situation. Zach Durfee deserves to be out there, as we've said. But all of a sudden, that's a really solid defensive front on those 3rd and longs, where it feels like every time they go to that NASCAR package and they go to that just all stand-up edge with no down linemen at all. So put Deshawn in there a little bit more. He's shown that he deserves to be in that role. But the defense is one thing, and there are a lot of guys that we certainly think that deserve to be part of that rotation. Lars, we need to see more Jeremiah Hunter, where he looked fantastic against Eastern Michigan. 5 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And the stat line doesn't reflect it, but he looked really, really good against Wazoo too. He's consistently getting open. He consistently, there are plays where I'm just going to watch him, where I just want to see what he looks like, where it's, oh, like the ball's not coming his way. What are we doing here? But it feels like he's getting open on the majority of his reps. But the ball is just not finding him. And that's something where, Giles was fantastic. I don't want to take anything away from Giles or Denzel, but Jeremiah certainly deserves to be a little bit more in the mix than he is. And if you can seriously just get him 4 more targets a game, like if he's averaging 6 targets a game, I think that's great, because he's probably going to catch 4 or 5 of them, even if he's contested. And on top of that, all of a sudden you're spreading the field out even more. That takes more coverage away from Denzel, takes more away from Giles. And when you have a tight end like Decker DeGraff, who is one of the top 10 PFF graded true freshmen in the country right now, this is a really, really solid group of pass catchers, and you have to utilize it to the fullest extent. And it feels like you're kind of tying a hand behind your back when you're not using Jeremiah as much as you possibly can.
So correct me if I'm wrong on this. How many 3 wide receiver sets have you seen this season?
I feel like I've seen a fair amount.
Because the snap count doesn't play that out. Jeremiah and Jonah Coleman have the same number of targets this season through 2 games. Denzel and Jeremiah. So it goes. So I'll read you the snap count. I'll read you the target count. 24 for Giles. Shout out. That story's been told. I will never stop telling that story. Denzel 23 for 17 for 166. The next is Jonah and Jeremiah at 10. And then it goes Kalecki at 8, Decker at 6, Cam Davis 3, Audric Harris 2, Quentin Moore 2. And that's kind of the thing is that's why I asked Fisch on Monday, what is the identity of your offense? Because you're running and passing about equally. It's a 53-47 split. I know the numbers. I can look at the box score and the stats. I'm not that great at math, but I can do the math on some of this stuff. But I think him throwing out, it's like, you want to make big plays. Jeremiah is a guy who can make big plays for you. Jeremiah is that guy. He averages 13.8 yards per catch this season. Clearly, he can get you a first down on every play. Denzel, I think, is around 8 or 9. So he's almost there. Giles is, I think, 12 or 13. So same kind of thing. My thing is either why are there not more 3 wide receiver sets? Because we haven't seen a ton of 4 receiver sets. Like, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen the offense, truly go to a spread. Is that because you're not confident in the offensive line? Which, again, I would say is still fair, but then that problem needs to be addressed. And if you want to go say, okay, let's lean on the run game. Well, you had 135 total, but Jonah had 100 both games in the first 2. So
one thing on the run game, though, I do want to say is it feels like the Quentin Moore injury is still looming large there, where Kalecki is shown to be a good run blocker. I've been impressed with Decker in the run game too. And while they've both been solid, they're not Quentin Moore. And there's no disrespect to either of them. Quentin Moore is one of the best run blocking tight ends in the country. Like, that dude is an exceptional run blocker. So I feel like that is kind of hamstringing the personnel a little bit more than they would like to admit right now, which is tough, but there's nothing you can do about it. And then, of course, compounding that with the Ryan Otten injury, the Charlie Kroll injury, you can only do so much at the position. But that leads into one other guy I want to mention just for 15 seconds here, because he deserves it. And we've had a very long discussion about why he's not getting more touches and more snaps right now. But Lars, Adam Muhammad, man, that's somebody I want to see on the field every possible chance that I can, no matter what. Go to 2 back sets. I don't care. Just find a way to get this guy on the field a little bit more. He's so much fun to watch. And with all that being said, Lars, there are a lot of guys that need to see more snaps. What other adjustments do the coaching staff need to make before their first game in the Big Ten? which we'll get to right after a message from our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers get $5, get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a card form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. And, I got a fun little prop for you today. You should go check out the odds of it over on FanDuel. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Rookie of the Year. I know, chalk pick. Say what you will. But after watching that dude just tear up the Rams in one quarter, 133 yards and 2 scores in one quarter. Yeah, he looks the part of a future #1 receiver and one of the best pass catchers in the league. And you need to go check out his Rookie of the Year odds over on FanDuel. And we've also got a message from our friends over at Roy. Hey, Husky fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite players. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes, and Roy changes the NIL game for fans because you can directly support players. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. You can download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. You can get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. So, Lars, there are adjustments that need to be made on both sides of the ball. I'm going to give you the floor here because when we were prepping for this show, you had a lot that you wanted to get off your chest. So please, by all means.
So we've been on record as saying Jedd Fisch is a pretty good play caller. And I think when you see him at his best, he absolutely is one of the better play callers in the country. The problem is over the first couple of games, and when we're starting to see, when talking about this weekend, when you're facing coaches that you have faced before, especially when you're at a new school, maybe try something new. Try something a little bit different or that you haven't used before and certainly haven't used against that same opponent, particularly at Arizona. Jedd Fisch talks about, hey, this is a brand new team. This is not, my Arizona teams. It's like, okay, but you're calling Arizona's teams with Washington's players. That's the problem. When you look at this team, yeah, they ran for 135 against Washington State. But to me, if you want to run for 200, you're a far cry off from that. You had 185 against Eastern Michigan. There needs to be more of a commitment in the run game. And I'm not saying necessarily that Jonah or Adam or say Cam aren't doing the job. I think it's about, getting the blocking right, because that's one area where, again, Enoch was fantastic in pass blocking, but they all struggled against the run. And they all struggled with run blocking rates. And that played out on Saturday. Yeah, they got 135, but no touchdowns. And no touchdowns for 2 games in a row. When you're talking about facing a defense, like we said, that hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown this season against a coach that has faced Jedd before, that almost scares me now, especially given what I've seen with the Apple Cup. Like, what adjustments can Jedd make?
And no, sorry, there's one other thing I want to get in there, because when you talk about that run blocking, one thing that needs to be mentioned with this Northwestern team is Xander Mueller is the highest graded run defender in the Big Ten right now. That's the Northwestern linebacker. He's a very, very talented linebacker, and I'm a really big fan of his game. But that's just something that just adds a little bit of concern into, okay, how are you going to attack this? How are you going to counter this?
Yeah, and I think but here's the answer is you have the running backs to do it. And going back to your first point about the Quentin Moore tight end issue, here's the thing. Yeah, you don't have a great tight end option there, but Zach Enning's a pretty good blocker. He's an offensive lineman, so he's a pretty good blocker. Like, if you're talking about having to use a 6th tight end as an offensive lineman, well, that actually should be to your advantage. Sure. Now, again, I understand, yeah, maybe he's not used to playing one position over because, again, he's a guard or a tackle. But either way, you're not talking about a center playing that 6th tight end. That would be a little bit weirder. Like that, like if D'Angelo is your 6th tight end in that situation, a little bit weird. But you have the running backs to do it. You have Jonah Coleman of players that have taken 50% or more total snaps. So basically any lead back in the country. This includes Aston Genty. No player has more yards after contact than Jonah Coleman at 6.1. Granted, Ashton's at 6.09, so he's right basically there. But you have one of the best running backs in the country who doesn't go down on the first strike. So you don't even have to have like the world's greatest blocking. But we've seen what Jonah can do when you have good blocking. So to me, it's can you scheme it up correctly? And the thing which you mentioned, if he's a good run blocking linebacker, that means he's getting into the second level. You need to have the front that prevents the linebacker from getting. So again, maybe don't run a pitch option where the linebacker can come crashing outside or you get him in space, because that to me, backer that's going to be able to come, quick off the edge, even though he's probably up the middle, but up the middle or otherwise, to make those plays in the backfield. So try and, this is almost like a prove it game for Washington. Like prove you got the cojones up front, run the ball right down the middle. You tried getting cute and doing the spread option, which by the way, you ran in 2022 and it didn't work. So maybe, you know what, you got Jonah, you got a pretty badass offensive lineman. You got some tough dudes. Like Guard's a tough dude. D'Angelo's a tough dude. Enoch's clearly a tough dude. Drew is definitely a tough dude. So when you look along that line, you got the dudes to do it. My thing would be, why not just – that should be the challenge to Washington is, you know what, have 250 yards on the ground. Have like 270. Like Will can throw for 225 and 3 touchdowns if you want, or 2 touchdowns, whatever. Will's okay throwing for that stat line if they win the game. The problem is when you don't win the game. So you got the guys to do it. You got the stable to do it. Prove it.
No, that's the biggest thing, is just finding a way to prove it. Where I know one thing that we discussed is on the other side of the ball, where I wanted to update the numbers a little bit, where, after John Mateer ran for over 60 yards, that is kind of the killer in terms of mobile quarterbacks against the Steve Belichick defense. And Lars, I know you have something else on this that you wanted to get into as well, is Northwestern's quarterback also quite mobile.
And not only that, so I know Andy Yamashita had the question on Monday to Jedd about, or no, to Tuesday to Steve about, facing a first time or second time starter, what kind of similar to Mateer, right? Mateer was making his second career start. Jack Lakesh is now making his second career start. Here's the problem though. He's played at least one game every single year he's been in college. And you know what he's done in every single game? Been a runner. He's been the Damon for Northwestern. I'm not saying he's got the Damon legs. I'm saying he's the special package guy. He's the guy where, hey, you know what? He's the guy you got to account for. Now he's the starter, and they actually proved again was Eastern Illinois. Yeah, Eastern Illinois. Right. Okay. Cool. So again, take that for what you will, right? Because it wasn't against Duke. That's the other side of this equation. But you got a guy who's more than confident running the ball, given that's what got him going in college football to start with. So now, Mateer showed I don't need a ton of touches. Jack ran for 6 for 72 against Eastern Illinois. Yeah, I guarantee you he'll have north of 7 on Saturday.
So, well, this is the thing that we talked about in the first segment. When we talk about Zach Durfee, when we talk about Deshawn Lynch, it's how is the game plan going to be different? Where when we saw Kamori House go out there and start, it was, this is interesting. Kamori did a really nice job. Kamori was excellent, and whenever he was on the field on Saturday, are we going to see more of that? Are we going to see, hopefully, on some of these third and longs, less cover zero? Because that was when you ran into issues. Are you going to see more Zach Durfee, more Deshawn Lynch, maybe more Isaiah Ward, who didn't necessarily have a huge snap count either, where you need to find other ways to defend a mobile quarterback? Because what they did, for the most part, it worked outside of those 2 plays. Like we talked about on yesterday's show, where we said, the defense wasn't a concern. There were a couple of bad plays, which obviously led to the loss of a game, as sometimes it does. But as a whole, there's nothing to be worried about with the defense. And this game is a major opportunity for Steve Belichick to say, this is why you shouldn't be worried. We made a couple of bad plays, but this is how we've corrected. This is how we've adjusted, because there are ways to still, run cover one with a spy in there, and you can still send extra guys. You can still find a way to make it work, but you have to show that now.
And you would think, and this is kind of what we're getting to, you would think Fisch and Belichick, 2 names, I have to only use the last name to tell you who they are, that they would be able to make those adjustments. So that's why when we get to Friday's show, I'm feeling confident on the side of the home purple team, but not overwhelmingly, because we still haven't seen it. Now, again, you're betting on the good elite coaching of a Steve Belichick in this case to make that happen. So to me, we just got to see it, I think. And that's what starts, again, here's your prove it test in Big Ten play.
Right. And it's a good way to start it. It's a great way to start it, where it's not necessarily, oh, you got to walk in and you're playing Ohio State right away, where that's one thing. But no, I really don't want to say a tune-up game, but getting an opportunity to get right against a team that's probably on the same talent level, maybe a little less, honestly, than Washington State, where it's a good way to figure out exactly what you want to be in the Big Ten and exactly what your game plan should be moving forward. And Lars, there's so much to talk about in terms of the game planning, but we have a Friday show for that because there's also a lot going on the recruiting trail, which we'll get to right after a message from our friends over at Game Time, because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, which is really great news if you want to go check out the Huskies play Northwestern this Saturday, because I'm sure there's still so many great seats, great ticket prices, all of that available on Game Time, which is awesome with Game Time Picks because curation makes it easier to save so much more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. With their all-in pricing, you can toggle this feature and it shows you total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. You can find lower prices somewhere else. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Lars, Washington got a really talented commit in 3-star offensive lineman Jack Shaffer, and we talked about a little bit in a bonus show, which we released on Wednesday. But when I look around this 2025 recruiting class, man, I wrote about it a little bit over on Huskies Wire last week, but I really can't help but be excited by so many of these dudes. And for me personally, it starts at the top with Zaydrius Rainey-Sale and Dylan Robinson.
Exactly. And I think that's what we've kind of said all along. And what we said about the offensive line class, it's now a complete class. That's kind of what I would say this entire 2025 class is, where when you take a look at any position, is there one that truly concerns you? Because I don't think there is. I mean, is there one where you could certainly say, would I wish you got the higher target? Sure.
Defensive tackle,
you could look right. But again, when you look at Dominic McCone and some of those other guys that are lower rated, but I think, with the right coaching, we look how well Linus Davis has done this season in just 2 games. Again, he didn't play against Washington State, but graded out as one of the top 5 defenders on Washington. And I know, again, Eastern Michigan and Weber State. But again, here's the thing. If you're good, even, as a redshirt freshman, you should be good against those type of teams. Now, again, if you struggle against, let's say, an Ohio State or whatever, I won't be as surprised because, again, now that just means now you got to get up there next year. But that's what we're saying with all of this is the overall talent. The rank, I think, number 19 in the country on 247. Jedd would always, Jedd said they want the highest ranked recruiting class ever. Will they get it? Did we think they would get it? Probably not. But again, the point is to aim high. So let's say if the top 10, let's say the record is 12 or 13, and you get to between 19 and 15. Okay, that's like saying, hey, we want to. That's like saying we want to win 12 games every year, and you get to 10. You're right there. You're now. Yeah, I'm not saying for this team's getting 10 wins, but I'm saying in that comparison, where hey, every year we want to be a 12-team playoff team. Oh, we get to 10 wins. We didn't make the playoffs, but we were like right on the cusp. We're like right there. 1 or 2 plays go differently. We're talking about being in the playoffs, and I'm not saying that's Washington this year. I'm saying that's this class. That's how you're building this class for the future.
You're saying it's a solid building block. Exactly.
Exactly.
Where one of those guys hopefully will be offensive tackle Zach Stascausky, who we talked about a little bit on the bonus show, where this is a guy who got his 4th star, a really, really talented kid. I just love watching his film where I look at him and I just say, yeah, if you want to slot that dude in, 2-3 years as your left tackle, you'll be solid for a long time. Like that guy has a very, very high ceiling. That was a really nice flip from Northwestern, but Lars, I have to go back to the well here where I cannot stress how excited I am for Dylan Robinson, where this is a guy who I really think, and we talked about it before, if you want to play wide receiver, he would. Where I look at the secondary, and if we see all 3 of the top guys go to the draft, which is very possible, Elijah Jackson could leave early. He's got another year of eligibility, but he can leave if he wants it. Thaddeus Dixon, this is last year. Ephesians Prysock can leave early if he wants to. Where, all of a sudden you might look at the corner room and say, oh, what's going to happen next? Like, what's that going to look like? Dylan Robinson is the kind of guy who I think can come in and start next year. He's so fluid. He's such a smooth mover. He knows the wide receiver position so well. And I think with his frame at 6'3", 190, he could immediately come in and just be a suffocating presence on the outside.
But that's why you take him and you say whether he wants to play offense or defense, because even recruits all the time say, hey, I want to play, like the Ace Attorney thing. We're thinking, you want to play safety or linebacker? It's wherever you want to play, wherever you want to start, we'll figure it out. Because to be fair, Jedd said the same thing to Chris Lawson.
Sure.
Where he said, you know what, let's get you started on offense. Let's get you dialed in on offense. And then if you soak up everything and then you want to still play defense, and we see that, because again, we know what you can do in high school, but as you translate to the college game, like if you show it in practice, then absolutely we'll give you that shot. And I think that is the case with Dylan Robinson, where wherever you end up putting him, again, it's the opposite case where it's like, hey, John Richardson's recruiting you. We're going to start you at cornerback or safety, whatever you want to put him at. That's right. Fine. But that doesn't preclude him from also having, because again, that's actually the perfect opportunity, because you can be a lockdown cornerback who, let's say you get 3 to 5 targets, you're not big in the offense, but you're significant enough for, hey, we're in the red zone. Let's put a thing to Dylan Robinson. Like, why not?
Sure.
Or, that's exactly what you could. And, if it happens to be that he plays himself like, hey man, he's like Rome or better. Like we got to put him on off. We got to put him. It's hypothetical. It's a hypothetical, but it's like, if it's a very obvious case of, oh Jesus, offense, no, deep John, sorry, here you go. Back Kevin, here you go. Like that's the situation you want to get in, where if he gets on campus and you have to make that switch, fine. More power to you. Like we saw Rashawn Clark come in as an athlete / whatever, and now he's listed as a safety, but has played more cornerback. So I think, again, it's more about the coaches are going to list you at whatever. It's where you play, and it's going to be how you perform when the coaches see you in practice. So it's just get him on the field, and he's going to see the field. That's the thing. I think he's going to see the field.
You're absolutely right, and that's that segues perfectly in the other position group I wanted to talk about, which is this linebacker group. Where the more I look at this linebacker group, the more excited I am for it. Where Zaydrius Rainey-Sale, I really don't think we need to talk about him. And it's, I don't mean that as a slight. He's that good. We know what we're getting when that guy steps on the football field in the spring, whenever he ends up enrolling. And I feel like you look at the guys behind him, Jonathan Epperson, Donovan Robinson, and you say, wow, this is a really, really solid athletic linebackers class. And Lars, it's something that we talked about when all these guys committed. We watch the linebackers, and it's something I've seen pointed out on Twitter a couple of times. It's Alfonso Tupatala is playing at a very, very, very high level right now. And that's, with Carson Bruner as well. And that's with Brian Parham, who's been really impressive. And we haven't seen Drew Fowler in a little bit because of the injuries and everything. But what do all 4 of those guys have in common? They're all leaving. They're all out of eligibility. So getting young bodies who might need to step in and play right away is a really good thing. Where, Hayden Moore is a project who they're working on. They've got Devin Bryan in there. We talked about Kamori House earlier in the show. We know how good he can be, but getting these front 7 guys who can be really stout against the run and also be, equally athletic in pass coverage if you need them to drop back is really important. And that's what all 3 of these guys can do. And I look at Zaydrius as a guy who's going to, at the very least, be in the rotation next year. I look at Jonathan Epperson as a guy who you put some weight on him. You need to play him at safety, fine. You want to put him at linebacker, fine. Where I think about a game like this last one against Washington State, having somebody like Jonathan Epperson in there is, instead of having taking a safety off the field, just put Epperson out there where, yeah, he's listed as a linebacker, but he can certainly do that job if need be. And just the way that they're filling body types and the way they're filling just this linebacker role, I'm really excited to watch it play out going forward. And obviously it starts with Zaydrius, but these other guys where, I feel it's a crime that it took me this long to talk about Donovan Robinson in and of himself, because he can do that too. And he's got a bigger, just as exciting body type compared to Jonathan Epperson, where there's certainly a role for all 3 of those guys to be on the field at the same time and for them to just be high impact defenders, whether it be in 2025 or really by 2026, probably the year I would target for all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zaydrius is going to be what Buddha was as a linebacker. In terms
I
of when
agree.
I say that, as the guy that's the premium instinct guy, the guy that can plant your flag and say, you know what, I'm going to build this from 2014 out. I'm going to be a 3-year guy. I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm going to do my thing. But just a linebacker. And I think it's almost as important where we saw Buddha make plays all over the field. Zaydrius is going to be that guy. Donovan, I think, will slot in more next to him because, to be fair, if anything else, he would drop back to safety with Benny and be a strong safety. So I think he makes more sense for that second linebacker spot next to Zaydrius. And then Epperson would play the Husky or star. So to me, because that's where he's being recruited as, even though Ball is the one recruiting, which I think that kind of says something interesting about what the future of this defense looks like, of how it could shape up. But it's exactly what you say. What is that? 6'3", 6'2", 6'2". It's exactly what you want, where you're talking about long, athletic guys who can be physical and also play the pass. That's what you need on defense, guys who can do both, where you don't have to say, oh, we got to take you off the field and put this guy on. It's no, we're going to play you 3 guys because you'll cover it at all 3 levels, where Batier won't break it for third and 20 because one of you 3 at the very least is going to be there.
Right. It's just about that adapting to the new world of the Big Ten. And there are so many ways you can do that because, it's shocking. We didn't even get a chance to talk about guys like Deji Jose and Raiden Vinesbright, who are both really, really talented receivers. I love what they're going to be bringing in, Dash Beerley, obviously. And there's so many players in this class. And that, again, that's without the 2 tight ends. We didn't talk about Baron Naone or Vander Plug, who are both really, really talented prospects. This is a really promising recruiting class. And we're not getting into Oregon territory where it's, oh, wait till you see the incoming recruiting class. It's no. But this coaching staff in its first year has done a really good job of building for the future and getting guys that can come in and contribute right away next year with some of the building blocks that we know can come back from this team, like a Denzel Boston, like an Ephesians Prysock if he wants to, like an Isaiah Ward, right? Where we go through all these positions and you say, Kamori House being another good example, Adam Muhammad too, where you go through all these positions and all these examples and just say, yeah, we see what the present holds and you combine it with these guys in the future, and Lars, this team has some really, really exciting potential. And with that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. Make sure you go check out our Locked On Huskies Insider program. The link to that is down in the description below. We're sharing recruiting rumors over there. We got game day stuff that we're dropping in there. We got so much stuff. We got fun, interactive Q&As with just the 2 of us that you can get in an unlisted YouTube link. When you sign up, it's $4.99 a month, but after a 2-week free trial where, you check it out, see if you like it. You get the opportunity to text with us one-on-one, and everything from that just goes directly into your text message inbox. So it's all really easy, really convenient, and it's a lot of fun. We really do love doing it. And, if you like everything we have to offer, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. So that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day. So make sure you click that like button, click that little bell. So even if it's when we post a new video, you got any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please, if it's a 5-star review, as it does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Friday.